and you can now start your webinar. Good luck, everyone.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us after your lunch break or your midday set. This is a really exciting session. We're looking forward to take charge of your goals with wellness coaching. And we're going to do a little introduction of ourselves, give a little bit of an overview, and then we're going to really launch into our session today. We're really hoping this can be very interactive. We have a lot of information to go over, but we definitely have some points to stop along the way, have questions, dialogue. We'll have a couple of little exercises we hope you'll participate in. So my name is Peggy Swarbrick, and I'm with the Wellness Institute at Collaborative Support Programs in New Jersey, as well as Rutgers University, work in the Department of, in a School of Health Professions, as well as Rutgers University Behavioral Health Care. And I've been doing a lot of work with focus on wellness and wellness coaching. And I'm really excited to be here today with my colleague, Crystal, who's going to introduce herself, to talk to you about these two important, really cool projects that have been going on for many years that we're going to show you how they can kind of come together, wellness coaching and the new taking charge of your wellness booklet. So we're really hoping that you'll learn a lot today and get some feedback, and we're really glad to share these. So Crystal's going to talk a few minutes and then we'll move into our session.
Thank you so much, Peggy, and thank you everyone for joining. So I am Crystal Brando. I'm a Senior Project Associate at Policy Research Associates. We're located in upstate New York. We are a woman-owned small business, and we engage in work around technical assistance, training, and research and behavioral health, and various domains that intersect with behavioral health. And one of the things we have at PRA is our PRA Wellbeing portfolio of work, where we are very intentional in our efforts to bring well-being and wellness to the forefront in the behavioral health and mental health conversation. And I've had the pleasure of working with Peggy in the wellness space for about 5 years now. So I'm excited to be here, to be back presenting at a NYAPRS conference, even in this virtual space. Grateful for the opportunity and grateful for everyone joining us today. So thank you. Before we dive into the content, we just wanted to have an intentional pause for a moment and ask if everyone would just take a few seconds. We'll spend 15 seconds in some silence and just ask that you set your intention for your participation today. Like Peggy said, there's going to be some interactivity. You know, do you hope to participate if you're normally someone who sits in the back? Do you hope to use the chat if you're normally quiet? What do you hope to gain from this session, or what do you hope to offer and contribute? So we'll take just 15 seconds and have an intentional pause to set some intentions for this time together. Wonderful. Okay, and if you didn't set your intention in those 15 seconds, no worries. Feel free to, think back to that throughout the presentation. What do you hope to contribute or gain from your time here?
Yeah. Thanks so much. And oops, so I went to the beginning here. So here's our intention, and we're going to try to match it with your intentions. Thanks for those of you putting your intentions in the slot. We really hope that through this session, we're going to define wellness coaching and the benefits of wellness, basically the wellness coaching model, something we've been doing for a number of years, and list the key components of wellness coaching and discuss how this model, this wellness coaching model, can be effective, that can be really helpful with people who have co-occurring medical, mental health, substance use challenges. And so give you a little bit of an overview of that. And part of why Harvey had asked me to do this, because he's very excited about the wellness coaching. So we've been doing it for years, wanted to get everybody to understand it. But what we thought that's really going to be great today, because I've been wellness coaching, we're going to learn about a tool. And this is one of the highlights of what I think of this session today, is describe how this Take Charge workbook can really support overall wellness. People can use it with the wellness coaching approach. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Or even if you don't use the wellness coaching approach, it's a really good resource that we're going to be focusing on today. So that's really what we want to do. And we hope this is very interactive to kind of understand, some of the feedback from you as we go along, as well as we're going to hopefully show you how you can use some of the pieces of the Take Charge workbook, or how do you access that, or just really understand about how this wellness coaching approach has been so instrumental in the recovery of so many people. So as we go forward, we'll want to just see now in the chat, we'd like to hear, just to get a flavor from you guys. So we're going to talk about wellness coaching, this Take Charge workbook that focuses on wellness in the day dimensions. We'd like to really hear from you. How do you define wellness? We'd like you to just spend a few minutes and put your chat in there. How are you defining wellness? So kind of hear a little bit. Balanced in body, mind, and soul, we hear. Somebody Karen put that in the chat. Holistic mental and physical wellness. Stephanie put that there. Happy and healthy. Balance and knowledge of self. So yeah, that whole, I always talk about wellness being this conscious, deliberate process where we become aware of and make those choices for that more satisfying lifestyle. Feeling at peace, that balance, that sense of that holistic choices. Folks are putting their comments here. Strong for self, strong for others, right? So being there for yourself, being able then to help others. Really, wellness can be so important, especially if we feeling of ourself that we can be there for others. Feeling satisfied, so is that perceptions of satisfaction with our life. Healing, as someone put here. Really great how definitions of wellness. And as we can see, there's different kinds of perceptions of it, but they seem to be fitting into certain themes that we can see: the mental, the physical, the balance, sense of self, taking care of inner self. Someone put here. Do you want to highlight anything you're noticing, Crystal, about the definitions that people are reporting here?
I think they're all great, and I'm excited to see, again, these different dimensions people bringing up, since we'll be talking a lot about that today. So thank you, everyone, for sharing.
Yeah, and you're going to see how the booklet and some of the wellness coaching can really help that. So the first part, as we're going to go through, keeping in your mind the wellness, how do you define it? It is very self-defined, but we're going to start off here with wellness coaching. What is wellness coaching? And so I want to just kind of really start off there. Wellness coaching is this process of supporting a person in creating and adapting habits that can lead to improved health in many of the different 8 dimensions, which we're going to highlight here. So there's the physical, there's the spiritual, the occupational, emotional, the environmental, physical, intellectual, financial, social, those different dimensions as you see on this beautiful visual here. So wellness coaching, so it's the wellness, kind of relates back. A lot of you talked about the mental, the physical. You see that balance, that intersection, they kind of fit, influence one another. It's that supporting that person of developing and these habits. And it's about that health, physical health, social health, emotional health, environmental health. It's that piece of health that we see. And really coaching really is that, like, for myself as a coach, I help a person to better understand and explore where they're at, their situation. That's part of the whole coaching process. Helping the person to understand what's going well, what do they want to improve, what do they want to strengthen, and then helping to support the person to really look at areas that they want to strengthen, they want to improve, they want to adapt, they want to change. People, in terms of wellness coaching, we do a lot of work around helping people strengthen what's already working, improving what is already there, and then perhaps it might be adapting and adjusting if there's challenges that are getting in the way, or habits that are, interfering with their life, interfering with their satisfaction. So again, it focuses on these areas that will go into the detail, but they really helps people to look at these critical habits. And as a coach, it's like really serving as a mentor and a supporter, not telling people what to do. It's a very supportive process, engaging process, and really works on mentoring people to look at where their strengths are, where do they want to improve, what's important to them, and then helping them develop these very, very concrete plans. It's nothing very complicated. It's very simple and strategic according to what where that person's at. And it really ultimately, as you're going to see in a few minutes, really helps people to make some important changes and adjustments in what's going on in their life and improving it. And so why we developed this model, like I've been developing the wellness approach for many, many years. Back into the late 80s was when I first started to work on the dimensional model. And at that time, it was actually started out with about 5 dimensions. It's evolved over time just because of the different disparities we're seeing and the different needs. We were seeing, even at that time, it was interesting when I started with the wellness model, it was a 12 to 15 year life disparity. This is back in the 90s. And that was one of the reasons I initially developed the wellness model, like for myself and for other people, just kind of way to be focused positively. But really where we then developed the wellness coaching to be a little more systematic was then when we saw the statistics about people dying up to 30 years before the general population. And so people were having a quality of life impacted and length of life. And this was particularly high among people what we consider severe mental disorders. And this was, like I said, it was invisible to many people, but it became in the forefront of many of us, even though a lot of us were talking about this in the late 80s and early 90s. And we started to really help the healthcare system to be responsive to this. So we really worked on creating this wellness coaching approach because of this serious crisis that was happening for far too many people we cared about. And we started to say, okay, we have to have a strategic approach to help people to change this focus or to help people. People can make changes. So we developed the model, which I'm going to highlight, but I want to start off because it's helped so many. It's had many, many benefits. And we haven't probably done as much research in this area because I'm just so busy working on developing tools for people to use rather than so much research. I love research, but we're not as rigorous as we probably want to get in the future about this because we need, I think, a balance of it too. Create tools for people who are really needing it. And we have a couple studies where we showed really the engagement of the peer. There's been strong connections with that engagement because especially we initially developed it as a peer-to-peer model, though we train non-peer providers in it, but we really help in the model, you have to use yourself. You have to really be transparent and be really looking at your own wellness and working through the process yourself to be able to be helpful. So the engagement, we found some good outcomes. People, again, you're going to hear me talk about, and we can give you many, many health habits that we've been able to help people around the sleeping, around medication, management of the different comorbidities they've had, as well as cutting down, quitting smoking, improving their physical activity, getting more active and engaged in meaningful physical activities for themselves, as well as many other good health habits, and also goals that people set. There's good goals attainments that people have. One of the studies we have, and my colleague worked on doing wellness coaching with peer providers. We did a couple studies with peer providers, and it prevented burnout amongst people who were working the field. So we provided wellness coaching to peer providers, prevented the burnout. It also had those other benefits I just mentioned, as well as we looked at some instruments that looked at the quality of life that was improved and general, the perception of health and overall physical health and general health were improved in some of these studies. So we have a couple of these studies that we've been working on, and basically we're trying to do a little bit more research. But again, it was interesting because we didn't have a whole lot of these rigorous studies early on, but people were really connected to the approach. The real benefits are the people it affects. And I'm just giving you my colleague who's a wellness coach and also a trainer of wellness coaching, George, there on the right, who has really benefited as a coach, receiving coaching as well as being a coach. And he talks about many of the benefits. And one of the biggest benefits he's had that's, affected him in so many ways was to develop this habit of yoga. And it took, through wellness coaching, he got involved in yoga, and it really helped him a lot, stress management wise, physical activity wise, social connection wise, And again, also the social engagement, it also became a shared activity he could do with his sister, and they could do, she's there together, Ida there with him at the yoga studio. So it really had these benefits, and it had many, when we think about the different dimensions, had so many of the 8 dimensions were impacted for him. So he was able to really work through that goal, keep that, and then sustain it, that activity. That's what you want to do. He's also worked on using the coaching to help with decluttering home. That's a big one. Environmental dimension, having big benefits of using it to really systematically and strategically declutter a house that he had to take over when parents passed away that needed a lot, and a lot of emotional things happen with that. It's really hard, but he's using that strategy to continue to do some really good decluttering, as well as sleep is one that he talks about. And these are things that I'm giving you these 3 concrete examples because they're other things people do. Sleep is a big one. We've helped a lot of people with the sleep patterns and things. So there's been some benefits, as well as many more that I can talk about as we go along. The components of wellness, the one thing that we think about in terms of the wellness coaching is it's a person-driven, strength-based process. So it's really about the person, finding what their strengths are, what their challenges are, what their needs. And it needs to be very person-driven. You might know what the person, they need to do this, or they need to do this, or if you just did this. That goes through our minds a lot of times, but we really work with coaches on not sharing those things so quickly, because you have to figure out where that person's at and work with them and really figure out the person, help them find out what's important to them, and them come to their own solution. We usually do them in individual, although we have done group adaptations of the wellness coaching project. We had a project called Wellness for Life, where we actually do have some data as well when we did some work at Rutgers. So it's done individually, can be done in group, and it's usually about a 2-month time frame to really get a person to set the goal and to also then work towards it, and then it does, move through the process. We have a structure. There's a fidelity or checklist that we use that we kind of help to train and provide the guidelines for you. Okay, what do I do through each of the steps? And we really put a supervision and monitoring process in. As a coach, you want someone to guide you. Even, you're working with someone, but to get that support from another coach or a supervisor can help you in that process. And we do have some paperwork around that and some processes around that really helps people to structure it, to make sure, if Crystal's doing the coaching and Peggy's doing the coaching, we're doing it in a similar way. We're going to tailor it to the individual, but we're following some of the same steps. So again, the person driven, it's really the person's goal and plan. So you do not create that for them. It has to be done for the person, with the person, and you really want to make sure you have that person very actively involved in the the process of developing the goals, developing the plans, following it. And again, if you do any kind of documentation, for your settings that do that, some settings do, some don't, you really want to make sure you really have that person's voice and that person's involvement in that process, that you're very, very person-driven and strength-based. So part of the flow really kind of, this relates to the fidelity piece. Again, you follow this process of tweaking it to the person. It goes through this process of orienting, just getting people to what is coaching, if you're interested, helping the person to understand what it is, what are our roles, and really just getting on the same page rather than telling the person, well, we were telling you need to have wellness coaching. It has to be someone wanting it, asking it. And that's a big part of the orientation process, where we really try to help describe what it is, what it's not in the roles, and really clarifying expectations. The assessment part is really where it's really exploration rather than assessment. The person to get together, they review the 8 dimensions, the areas, to look at the strengths around understanding what the person's doing already, what they want to be doing, and really coming to an understanding of what's important for the person. So really exploring that very carefully through some good, and especially we do a lot of training as part of the training in terms of good, effective listening skills, responding skills, really engagement skills. So you really understand what's important to the person. And then from that, moving towards helping the person to set a goal for them. So a very, very short-term concrete goal is what we suggest. And we use that SMART format, but it has to be really in that person's word, and it has to be really reflective of what that person's saying they need and they want to be doing. So we want to really think about moving through that process of orienting people, exploring and assessing, or that collaborating on that to help set that goal setting process. And then once the person has decided on a goal that they want, there's a plan that's set up that you set up with the person to really plan what are the best steps that they want to take, what is the coach going to do. And it's a really a co-created plan that really helps the person to be successful as much as possible in accomplishing that goal. So it's going back to look at what have you looked at in terms of the person's explorations of their wellness dimensions, the things they're already doing, the things that are already going well in their life, things that they already feel are strong. So you really work with that to help create a plan, help the person to create the plan that's going to be most successful for themselves. And this idea of accountability, it's not like I come in and I say, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. You help the person to set up the personal accountability for themselves, setting up very simple strategies around how they can be most successful in this process. So it's helping them to really be reminding of why this is important to them, reminding of the things that they say and they want to do and the plans that they set for themselves. So we try to create very tools, and as you're going to see, some aspects of the Taking Charge workbook will be possibly tools that can help with this accountability plan. And then what happens is the coach just really mentors and supports the person along the way as they work through this plan. And you see that can go back and forth. People might need to go back over times and adjust the goal, adjust the plan. It's a very, it's not like so much like, here it is, you said you were going to do this and you didn't do it. You go back constantly as you're mentoring and supporting, and it potentially adjust the goal and adjust the plan to best meet that person. So that's a general overview of that flow for the person. And so the other piece then we see here is that it's in terms of the tasks. I mentioned it goes back to that first one, really orienting with people, doing a really good orienting early on and then often, because you want to make sure you're all on the same page about where or what the person's interested in is in coaching, and then ongoing, asking them, using a lot of questions to ask, explore, and making sure you're really doing good listening skills. Because if we don't check in with people, if we don't be asking them, clarifying, sometimes we start going in the wrong directions, and then people will just be like yesing them, and then just not showing up to the next meeting. And we saw that sometimes some coaches, just sort of think the person and didn't check in, didn't clarify, didn't really understand what was the next step. So that this is part of the task that we do a lot of the teaching. So the question, there's a question I think in the chat about, is this more this for everyone or more for the coaches? This process that we use to train, what I'm talking to you about is some of the training we use and the tasks. But what I always say to people when they're trained is like, the person who's receiving coaching, this isn't a secret to them. Let them know about what your training is. So this would be the things I'm going over right now are things we do in the training, and it's giving you a little bit of an overview of what we do for the training of the coaches. But they're definitely, from a transparency perspective, you want to share, this is what coaching's about. So if you're educating someone, if they're interested in coaching, you might share that with them as well, so they understand what you're doing. Great question. So another question is the wellness coaching part of the solution suite? I don't believe there's much in the solution suite on wellness coaching per se. The solution suites a resource that we can reference at the end. It's at the University of Illinois, Chicago. I don't believe they have anything about wellness coaching up there currently, but that's a good question. There was a lot of stuff about wellness up there, yeah. So that's really the flow, the tasks, the process, just to give you, and just before we move into some other pieces, I just want to highlight some of the competencies, some key competencies that we really think, again, I referenced it already, but communication skills and narrative, sharing your narrative are two pieces that we do a lot of training and support about. So it's, again, this for some of you might be, you know, repetitive. You've had communication skills already, training. We'll do a lot of communication skills training in this because they're so important for engaging, supporting, making sure people feel you understood and listened to. And we do a lot around training people on their listening blocks, because I think that's what we find people get in the way, is always being attuned to your listening blocks, which we all have. So it's doing a lot of, it's a core competency that we really help people with in terms of the wellness coaching process. So if you're really good already in communication skills, you are going to be having an edge for taking this training, but it's going to go in communication skills in the context of exploring and these other aspects that I highlighted earlier. The other piece to the skill is your narrative. We do a lot to really help you making sure coaches we have coaches be coached as part of the training. You get coached, you receive coaching. It just helps you to do it much better, and it helps you to be attuned to the process yourself and be more sensitive to the way, you know, the pace that someone else you might have to adjust, as well as it provides you very strong disclosure things. We do really highly suggest disclosure in a hopeful, intentional way. So we do some training around sharing those bite-sized nuggets of your story and your narrative that can be helpful potentially in terms of the engagement and the support that you're providing. So we will, we do this, and this is also part of, again, that supervision and support that a person might be receiving from a supervisor or such. So those are just kind of some of the core competencies about in the coaching. So just, and I'm going to go through a piece of this, and then we're going to move into the really great tool where Crystal's going to highlight it. So there's the orientation that I mentioned, and I'm just going to show these slides. You'll have access to these. It really outlines, and this really is very scripted for people, though you have to do it in your own style and in your own way. It just really maps out what I've highlighted before in that other slide that kind of bulleted out. You see how to the orienting. So we train on this, we teach on this, we help coaches to understand how to do this piece. And again, it moves into this, as it sees at the end, that introducing the wellness tool and the planning tool, which is something that is a big piece of what we're going to highlight in a few minutes about the tool Taking Charge book. So it's really about focusing on the wellness assessment, the wellness exploration, and that is really an important piece to help for really explore using your communication skills, using some of your narrative to really help the person to look at their strengths in the overall 8 dimensions, and then in the physical domains as well. Understanding what they're going well, what's getting in the way, maybe what are some priorities, and really using some good engagement and support skills to really help the person explore where they're at. So then you can get that picture, just think about where they're going. So I'm going to turn it over to Crystal, who's going to really take us through an important piece of this new tool that can really help a coach in this process.
Thank you so much, Peggy, and thank you for all of that wonderful information presented. So much of it ties into this Take Charge workbook that I'll talk in more detail about. Peggy just mentioned, for example, the personal narrative. This workbook that we'll go over is a tool that can be used for self-reflection and helping to develop that personal narrative. It's a new tool that was just recently released in August. Sorry, I'm trying to move the slide here and it's not going. There we go. Released in August 2020 by PRA Wellbeing. And our hope is that some of the benefits that Peggy just spoke about as far as wellness coaching benefits, like enhancing engagement, promoting quality of life, preventing burnout, these things, that this workbook will be one tool in someone's toolbox for being able to accomplish those things, either in a wellness coaching environment or not, which we'll talk a little bit about. So this workbook was developed by PRA Wellbeing, just released in August, which now feels like a lifetime ago, just last month. In August 2020, it came out, and it was developed with a group of experts, including individuals with lived experience and the expertise they had to offer. All the folks who participated were experts in some area, and so Dr. Swarbrick worked on this with us, and Chaku Matai, who some of you may have heard in this morning's keynote session, worked on this with us, and some others. So there was all hands on deck, so to speak, in creating this product in a meaningful way that we hope will be of service to you all and to the field. This is considered a cost recovery product, which means we do sell the product by at PRA. However, it's not sold for the purpose of making profit. We're selling it for the cost we incurred for producing it, in that sense. So at this point in time, it's not a free product, but it is available for a low cost. So the workbook is 120 pages. There's a picture of it there. 120 pages broken down into 8 chapters on each of the 8 dimensions of wellness. And Peggy talked about what those are at the outset, and I imagine many of you are very much familiar with these dimensions. And if we go back to the question for the chat at the beginning of this session, thinking about what is wellness, how do you define wellness, to see all of the comments with different intersecting areas of well-being was amazing, and all of that comes into play in this workbook. So folks were mentioning physical, spiritual, and mental well-being as part of wellness, or other features that really talk about these different dimensions. And that's what this workbook is broken down into, talking about how there are intersecting components that are all connected and help to promote our overall well-being. So even though there are 8 distinct chapters on each dimension of wellness, they really do intertwine as they do in real life. So there's opportunity for someone to, in a wellness coaching framework, say, work with a wellness coach to take a wellness inventory and identify the various dimensions of wellness where someone may have more strengths, and perhaps those could be left for later, and a starting point to work through the workbook might be those areas where someone's experiencing more challenges or has more barriers. The wellness coach can work with an individual to dive in any one area, or someone can just take it from the top, go to the first tab and start with the content that's there and work their way through. So there are various ways to use this workbook that can be tailored to the individual, and where is it best for them to start, or not start their wellness journey, to include this particular product as part of their wellness journey. So working with coaches and doing the assessment and planning can help with figuring out where to start in this tool. And, you know, when Peggy went through the different components of wellness coaching, that action planning, this book can help support that, support the action planning. So the workbook itself is very much designed for engagement. So it's not a matter of all reading and writing, but we want people to use this and have fun with it. So there are some opportunities for written prompts and reading content, and there are also spaces where people can use the workbook and do some coloring. This is an image here on the screen, an example of a labyrinth walk from the chapter on spiritual wellness, where we hope that people who are using the workbook can just take a pause and use their finger and follow through this through this labyrinth walk, just for a mindful moment and just to get grounded and get centered. So there are spaces for coloring in different images, for drawing pictures, inserting a favorite photo into the book. There's also practical tools like lists of medications that one can keep to be able to share that with their medical providers and have that on hand and so forth. So it's really about creating opportunities for users to get curious about their own wellness strengths, as well as recognizing those barriers and creating their personal plans for well-being, and doing so in a way that we hope will be fun and engaging. See. Thank you, Peggy, for helping me out there. So as I mentioned, this is indeed created for action planning. So the workbook offers various suggestions to help guide the users towards creating their personalized wellness plan. So on the screen, there is a sample prompt from the physical wellness chapter with a question that says, do you have a hard time getting to sleep or staying asleep, yes or no? And if so, is there anything from the list above that you can try to improve your sleep? So this is an example of a prompt where we're asking the individuals using the workbook to think about their own wellness, and not only think about it, but perhaps borrow from recommendations and suggestions that we offer through this tool to try to improve that area. So in this case, if someone said, yes, they have a hard time getting to sleep or staying asleep, they may opt to follow any of the recommended strategies, which could include things like going to bed at the same time every night, limiting blue light exposure before bed, so trying to get off of the phone or the laptop or the tablet before bed to signal to the brain that it is indeed bedtime, avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed. So there are suggestions like that in the book. So if someone says, yes, I'm having a hard time falling asleep, they can say to themselves or with their wellness coach, which of these suggestions are practical for my life that I can try to work towards improving my sleep as part of my physical wellness. And all of the suggestions and recommendations in the workbook are based on science. There was intensive literature reviews and looking at various best practices, culturally relevant practices for different groups of people and so on, as we developed the suggestions that will be shown in the book. The workbook also connects with other tools. So there's the book itself, which is a hard copy document that you saw in that image. But we understand that people learn, plan, and process differently. So even though the workbook was designed with an eye towards engagement and hoping people have fun with it, with the coloring and drawing and things like that, there are also areas of the workbook where we encourage users to go out and check out some other resources, some of which were made by PRA and some maybe we discovered in the field or came through a recommendation or something of that nature. So here's an example, a screenshot from the book where it says, learn more, stream the PRA podcast series about social wellness on SoundCloud. And so if someone types in that link, they will go to PRA Wellbeing's podcast series, and there are podcasts on each of the 8 dimensions of wellness. And it's just another opportunity for people to really dive in to these dimensions and learn more and to learn various strategies. So each podcast on the 8 dimensions of wellness, each topic is very specific. So when we talk about physical wellness, for example, it's not broad on physical wellness. That one is specifically about smoking cessation. There are 2 consumer tobacco advocates who talk with a clinical psychologist out of Rutgers, Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, about smoking cessation. And so that's the topic on physical. For financial wellness, for example, there are individuals who receive SSI and SSDI, and they speak with their case manager about what that means to them and how that helps support their financial wellness and lead them closer to financial self-sufficiency and economic empowerment. And so we have people with lived experience, various experts. Peggy and I are on one talking about epigenetics as part of environmental wellness. So again, these are ways to dive into the various dimensions of wellness that are outside of the workbook, but users can get linked into it by checking out the tools that are recommended in the book. And so we've talked about the workbook as a potential opportunity to enhance wellness coaching or supplement wellness coaching, and it can certainly be used in that methodology, and it can also be used for individuals by themselves, with or without wellness coaching. Someone can use it as part of their personal wellness and recovery journey and find their own starting point and work through it on their own, maybe bringing close and trusted peers and supporters if someone would like to have conversations about where they are in their progress. that's always an option. But it doesn't have to go with wellness coaching. Anyone can access this and use it. CSPNJ has a wellness inventory folks can access and take for free and do an assessment of where someone stands on their wellness and pick a starting point that way, or just dive in and get started on someone's own time. Behavioral health organizations may also find this valuable to distribute to individuals who receive services. And so it can be part of a group format, and it can be given out to folks just as a tool to add again to their toolbox to support their own wellness. And we also anticipate that we'll have some organizations using this tool even for their staff as part of their larger organizational wellness strategy and becoming a mentally healthy workplace, making sure that staff who have command of their own wellness and work on their own wellness goals will be better able to serve the individuals they're working with their wellness goals as well. So it's applicable to various settings and does not have to go hand in hand with wellness coaching, even though, as we've described, they really do go nicely together and are great complements. So I mentioned that Peggy worked on this and Shaku worked on it, as well as other national experts. So before closing up this portion of the presentation, I just wanted to put the names of everyone who joined us in this endeavor. On this slide, some of these names may seem familiar to you, folks who have been working in the behavioral health field for a very long time, some newcomers as well, but folks who are really passionate, driven, and have the knowledge and expertise in these areas. So without them, this book wouldn't exist. So we're very grateful for all of their contributions and thank them for working with us on this project. And now what someone has already asked is, where do you get the workbook? So again, it is a cost recovery product. It can be purchased from Policy Research. There is an order form available on Policy Research's website, www.prainc.com, and folks can fill out this order form and return it and receive a copy via postal mail. And what I'll also do right now is test my multitasking skills and put in a link to a preview of the workbook into the chat. And so while it's not the full workbook, the link that I'm sharing will give you the opportunity to access a PDF that shows various pieces of the content, so you can get a flavor for what is this about. While I hope this presentation helped, I'm sure there may be some additional curiosity of what the book looks like. So that's a link that I just dropped in here, and you can access that and take a look.
Yeah, and as Crystal was highlighting a lot of the pieces, she has that there. You can take a look. We also like to have some questions at this point. And I also want to just highlight one thing about the book. It's hard, it may be not so easy to see, but if you look at the picture, there's these really cool tabs. I think the one thing about it is the size of it and the way it's laid out. People just love it because it's so accessible. The tabs were very intentionally designed. And so we just want to highlight a few of those things. And we just want to see if there's any questions right now in the chat, either just the beginning of the, just to kind of look at the Taking Charge book to see if there's questions anyone has about that, or comments if anybody's accessed it already, if anybody has used it already or saw it. Either in the chat, or maybe we want to, yeah, maybe in the chat, we want to post in there.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Peggy, for drawing attention to the size, the convenience. I think when Peggy first got her copy, she said, I can spill my coffee on it, you know, and it'll still be okay. So we hope that it is a trusted companion for people and can get used and, you know, tossed around a little bit, thrown in the book bag or whatever the case may be. So how much is the book? The cost varies based on quantity. The most expensive option is $10, and that is for 1 to 4 books, I believe. They would cost $10 plus shipping. And then, yes, 1 to 4 would be $10 for that question. And the shipping cost would be additional. And then at a quantity above 11 books, it's based on actual shipping. So folks contact us with the order form, and our great team gets together what it would cost to send the books out and go from there. So thank you for that question.
Other questions about a little, if any, and I'm going to shift back to wellness coaching in a minute because this was a good tool and really want to highlight, get your questions about the tool. Somebody asked, does it compare to WAM, which is delivered in a group format? Yeah, you could use a group for this, and it is a group, and actually we're in the process of we're going to probably be offering a virtual version of the book, a 3-part series on the book. If you're interested, please contact me because we'll be offering that for free, and we'll also be mailing the book out to people who are doing. But it is different from WHAM, and it's similar in some ways. There's things, but it's a little bit different in many different ways, as well as RAP. It's they all kind of probably complement each other, but there's a little bit of a different. It's a little bit more of a tool you could use on your own. You could use a part of it, in coaching or in supporting someone else. So it can be used in complement with many of those things, but it is a little bit different. And I think that's what a lot of people like it. It is a little different than some of the things that have been around. So there's a couple of things about people are putting in the chat. We're welcome to have any more questions and any more comments about the book. Somebody wrote a thing, my question on RAP 2 as a solution sweep has like program that I believe the RAP actually is the original RAP program, which was is up there on Solution Suite. I'm not sure the question that did you see that question?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I think the question may be, how is it different? Or I think it's agreement with the question above about how is it similar or different to something like WHAM or RAP. And I think one of the items, the question that just came in by Linda, is it meant to just be given to people, or should someone guide them through it? That's a component of this, like Peggy's mentioning, that an individual can work on this. It could be used as a supplement. So there is no curriculum for this workbook. So I think that would be one of the distinguishing factors when you're looking at some of the other wellness curricula that exist out there. This can be used as a standalone product. And yes, to the comment that just came in, it can be used as a guideline for different individuals, or maybe not so much guideline, but action planning tool, wellness planning tool. So while it can be used in wellness coaching, someone can meet with their wellness coach in a session, and then maybe they're meeting back with that individual a week later. And in the meantime, they can work on the spiritual wellness chapter and come to their next session with how that went, how they navigated that chapter. So it's really for self-reflection. So it can be used in wellness coaching and become part of that dialogue. Yet it can be used by an individual on their own time. It wouldn't require anyone to work with them on it. There's no curriculum for how to use the workbook. It's self-explanatory. There's introductory content up front that explains some of the pieces to the user, to the individual, but it's not inherently part of a larger curriculum or train the trainer or training process on wellness. So it is a standalone tool.
Yeah. And we're in the process, as I mentioned, we're putting together a 3-part series. My colleague, George, I think he may even be on the training, George, if you want to put anything of your thoughts about what you felt in the workbook, we'd be happy to hear that. We'll be offering it. We'll be, like I said, we're going to be sending it out to do a Zoom version of a education on walking people through it through 3 sessions. We're going to be just doing that because of what we're going to do. We would have done it in person if we could be in person, but we can't. So we're going to be doing this. So as people register, we will be mailing them the book and doing this pilot of it. So we'll be scripting something that someone could do for an online delivery. So that's going to be a new additional project that we're having. And if anybody else is interested in that kind of thing, we'd be happy to help them. Yes, very important. For a great tool for peer support specialists. If you have any training in peer support specialists, this is an additional tool, as I mentioned, like RAP or WHAM or the Wellness in 8 Dimension tool. It's just another tool for your toolbox. But it's really, like Crystal said, I could drop my coffee on it and I'll wipe it off with a napkin and I'll be okay, because the cover is very good quality and the material is really nice. It came out quite nice, and it is just definitely something that I have mine, could pull it over there, but yeah, thank you all for your questions, and we really as we go along, and I'll talk linking this back to wellness coaching. So it's a tool. So my colleague here, George, thank you, George. He was working with us, so he's putting together the curriculum for the online delivery of the Zoom version, and he looked at it, carefully, and he's structuring the 3-part session, and he's saying it's friendly, user friendly, impactful content. So he's dove into it, and he's ready to deliver it in a sense. So you're getting it from someone has peer support training and knows that it's a really good tool for a peer wellness coach, which he is, as well as a peer supporter to use that's very user friendly and has really rich, impactful content, as he said. Great, thanks, George. Yeah, so feel free to keep going along, put questions. Well, I'm going to go for my last piece, and we'll continue a little, unless you want to do a little breathing to kind of give us I know I was doing the New York minute, rushing to try to make sure we went quickly, but we have time. I can go in my last pieces, but maybe we take a little pause again.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. There is a lot of content here, and I think it'll be nice for folks to take a breather, so to speak. So why don't we, if you're interested in participating, we'll do a brief breathing exercise. I'm not sure. I imagine there is a name of this approach, this style of breathing, and I'm not sure of what it is right this second. But we'll breathe together, and what we'll do is we'll inhale for 4 seconds if you're comfortable, if you're capable of doing that, and if not, inhale for a shorter duration. So we'll inhale for 4 seconds, hold the breath for 7 seconds, and then exhale for 8 seconds. And again, that's if you're comfortable. So if inhaling for 4, holding for 7, and exhaling for 8 feels challenging, go ahead and adapt and do what works best for you, even if you're just breathing regularly and being mindful of that. So I'll try my best for the first time ever to talk and breathe in that fashion at the same time. And we'll just go through a couple rounds of that breath. If you're not interested in breathing, maybe in this capacity, maybe feel free to take a moment and do some neck rolls or stretch your arms out. Or if you're sitting and able to stand up, feel free to do that just to kind of waken your body up a little bit. So we'll just do 3 rounds of the breathing for those who are interested in that. So we will inhale for 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll do that again. If that was uncomfortable, again, adjust for this next one. We'll inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we'll do one more. Inhale for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And exhale. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wonderful. If you did do that and would like to use the chat to tell us how that felt, we would love to hear from you about how that experience was trying out that breathing. And if you did something else for a few seconds, if you did some neck rolls or moved your arms around, wiggled your fingers or something just to waken up a little bit and get some energy into your body, feel free to use the chat and tell us about that too.
Okay.
Thank you. I love the excitement. Yay. Good. Positive feedback. Glad that was helpful. And yeah, feel free to use the chat. And in the meantime, I'll hand it back to Dr. Swarbrick, to Peggy, to talk a little bit more about wellness coaching.
Yeah, so you've got to hear me talk a little bit about the process, the flow, some of the tasks and skills, and then Crystal gave you the assessment, exploration piece. of the wellness and 8-dimension piece, this was just such a great tool. So, I'm just going to highlight a few other pieces of because I know I went quickly through it, and it was intentionally to get us to really spend a good amount of time on the Taking Charge workbook. So with wellness coaching, and again, this tool and other tools as well really help you to help the person to set a goal that you use in a way that really reflects on that wellness assessment, so that really using the tool we have, this kind of a tool, will really help you to help the person to find a goal that's going to be important to them, something that's going to be really, really meaningful, going to have an impact on their life. Remember the quality of life, lifespan, people being impacted physically most of the time, but other areas of the dimensions of wellness. We really try to help people to set an important goal, and then spending time to really keep reminding them, again, in the accountability piece, relating to that purpose in life. I want to get more physically conditioned because I want to be able to pick my grandchildren up and have a good time and play with them. Or, these are the kind of goals people have. They want to do something more physically active, but it's just with a larger purpose in mind. I want to cut down or quit smoking because I want to have more energy, and I see all these other people in my life that are getting sick. So I want to stop this habit. So I want to have more energy. I want to have more money. I want to be able to get back to what I did when I was younger in terms of maybe running or getting more into a walking routine. So we help people to set goals for themselves, as well as occupational goals, going back to work, going back to school. People set the goals again around home ownership or savings. We recently have a financial wellness focus in our curriculum that we've used, helping people with saving and budgeting and money management. There are all kinds of goals that people set, and they set a goal that's in a smart format. And you really, as a coach, want to help that person make sure that priority is clear, but then the commitment to the goal is really important to look at. So it's really a process. And in the goal setting, it's reflecting back on the pieces, but it's really making sure that this comes from the person and doing a lot of brainstorming, as well as in the planning process. You do a lot of brainstorming with the person. And again, always going back to orienting. Orienting comes up along the way, orienting as you go overall, and then each step of the way to help the person, and understanding that we each have a role in this, but mostly the person is driving the process. So using all your good communication skills, and then really help the person. In planning, we're very strength focused, but we do recognize resources and barriers that can get in people's way. So we do spend time on that, finding the resources that can help, identifying those barriers that are going to get in the way, and then collaboratively looking at the brainstorming process to help the person figure out what can they do, what supports they can get, or what maybe other resources outside of themselves might be helpful to access to be able to help them to be successful. So you do this in a very collaborative way with the person. And again, a lot of the data that you get from the person doing their own wellness with these tools can really help you say, oh, remember you talked about that, or you're doing that, or the person remembers it because they've done it and they've mapped it out in terms of their wellness planning, a wellness exploration or wellness assessment process. This starts to activate things that they know they can do or they have done in the past. So it really helps strengthen the person putting together a plan that's going to be really helpful for them and hopefully bring them to the success that they want. Being able to then break it down, don't make it this in the year, we make it short-term goals. And we really try to help the person think about the when, where, what, how, what they're going to do, because the more you can visualize, talk about it, record it, the more you can take those steps. That's one of the pieces that the coach can really map that out for the person, to really map out the steps. And again, help them think about what is it going to feel like when you get through these steps, and keep checking in on that in your coaching and your mentoring process with people, is kind of identifying what it's going to feel like when they accomplish it, or when they accomplish it, see how they feel, and try to build that motivation for people when they feel good about that, or maybe they're frustrated about it, but help them to kind of explore those feelings, and then try to help them to manage feelings that might get overwhelming for them, or maybe lead to their abandonment of this whole process. So you could be in check with that rather than them not calling you back or not following through. So, we've learned that from experience in this process. So then the accountability, again, what are the things that you can do around check-ins on accountability? What are some of the things that the person's going to do to kind of cue themselves with the reaching out to their supporters, or what they can do for themselves? And the big piece of accountability is making sure you don't just keep this, it's their copy of the plan. So make sure they have that plan with them, and being also very clear about methods to check in and support. In coaching, you may meet again in person, if you're in person, or on the phone, you know, a certain amount of times to get through the process, but the check-ins can be very short as you go along. They can be, you know, the person can be texting you, emailing you. They can be emailing someone else, you know, using principles of RAP, getting other supporters involved and involving other supporters in that process. So the accountability is where the person really learns to create that self-accountability, but then with the coach trying to help give accountability to each other of what your role is in the coaching. And then really it's the person's plan for them to set up these plans, because ultimately it's something that then they can carry over into other kind of plans that they do for themselves, or goals that they might have set for themselves. The mentoring, the support, is just meeting with people, using those communication skills, and just kind of helping the person to adjust. I talked about a lot of this earlier when I was going through the process, but it's just really helping people to explore what's getting in the way, because inevitably something's going to get in the way. The plan's going to, many plans have been successful right away, but people are always adjusting. Life comes up, things come up, and having a dialogue and meeting and brainstorming and problem solving and figuring other supports or resources that might be needed is something that often happens in the wellness coaching process. So doing that mentoring support is is an important piece for the person, and it keeps it moving. So I've given you sort of an overview of the wellness coaching flow approach, some of the benefits, some of these steps that we teach and we use to try to help a coach just know what they need to do at each step, and how they can help support a coach. And you saw the wonderful tool that can really help you, whether you're doing wellness coaching or you want to just do a wellness exploration with people. We've given you a wonderful opportunity to see this great new tool that's developed by a wide range of people from the field that I think is going to be really helpful for a lot of people. We just want to see for yourselves today, as we're getting time, we want to look at questions that might have come into the chat, and we want to hear from you if there's anything else before we end. And you can also follow up with us. What would you want to know about wellness coaching, or the Taking Charge book today? While we're here today, post in the chat or follow up with us. But we'd like to just hear from you, your questions about what we said, or what else you'd like to know. Do we have
Thank you, Peggy. And I'll add too that doing the breathing exercise sparked a little bit of conversation in the chat about how folks remember to do deep breathing. So I think that's great. And maybe people are learning from one another some of the activities that were put in. Someone suggested, or not suggest rather, but shared that they put sticky notes on their refrigerator to remind them to meditate. Someone commented that they try to do deep breathing right before eating or right after eating, so that it's linked with an activity that would make it harder to forget to do, assuming one is, eating that day, then doing the breathing with it will make sure it happens. Someone mentioned that if they feel the need to smoke, they do deep breathing, so they no longer have that urge to smoke. Also setting a phone alarm to remember. So these were all great ideas that people shared. Thank you for that unexpected conversation that took place, and feel free to use the chat to share others with one another and connect, in addition to asking any questions.
So any other things we could answer for you about the wellness coaching, the Taking Charge workbook? We'd be happy to, answer your questions or hear anybody's experiences if you had wellness coaching. So Harvey had initially asked me to do this because there's an interest and a renewed interest in the wellness coaching. So we do hope that we don't have any trainings currently available, but we do hopefully maybe within the next, by the fall or early spring, to be offering some trainings eventually. So you can keep in touch with me to and I can keep you on a list to see when we may do some trainings. We will be at Collaborative Support Programs, there will be offering wellness coaching probably later in the fall. As we finish the Taking Charge workbook, we are going to be able to resume offering some limited wellness coaching for people by virtual means. So we're very excited that that's something we'll be able to do in the very near future. And we're hoping, again, that Harvey was very interested in us reactivating this, because it's been about 11 years really since we started it, but about 10 years we worked with NYAPRS on a project where we did some training for them for some of the folks that were working from NYAPRS, and it was such a great way for the staff to get, the peer support staff to get trained, as well as for the last so many years we've been doing trainings around the country on this model and the approach. And it's just, it's definitely an approach that's helped a lot of people, and we're hoping maybe many of you would be interested more in it. And if not anything, the Taking Charge workbook is just such a wonderful resource that I think many of you who reach out to the resources we have shared to be able to access that, and or if you're interested in a couple of people did say they're interested in the 3-part series, just let me have your email and I'll keep you on the email list when we send out that registration form. So again, any other comments or things coming through, Crystal, or any, before we go, anybody want to, we're just getting down. I know people are probably getting ready to get to the next session. It's been it's really exciting that we can have this conference this way. We don't have to always mention, and I usually driving up, the thruway in the morning, very early in the morning to get there. I kind of miss that in a way, but it's so wonderful that we can actually do this and be here together. So we really appreciate everybody's time and interest. And any questions in there, Crystal, that we can answer, or comments?
It looks like for wellness coaching, there are a couple of questions if I scroll up here about what it takes to get certified as a wellness coach, as far as what that training would look like and how someone would go about that specifically.
Yeah, depending on your state, there might be different regulations for it in terms of certifications. So I don't think, I don't know, I think in New York, I've heard there's some talk about maybe doing some training and wellness coaching. So that might be something to keep on your radar. But again, I'm not sure. We do a certification. We did certifications for people through our training, and then different states have different regulations about that, depending on the state. I did notice someone mentioned it looks a lot like psych rehab, some of the methodology, that training of psych rehab training, the wellness coaching. Yeah, there's definitely, there's elements of it. I think a number of us who have been involved in the development of it was very influenced by psych rehab. There's some aspects of psych rehab that that are brought into this wellness coaching process. So that, Karina, that's a good observation. I'm able to see here with some of the comments. Some people are interested in the training. Just feel free to reach out, and I'll keep you on the waiting on a list if we do it. I see a lot of people put their emails in here, so we'll have to save the chat. But it's great, the comments here. And so a number of people interested in the 3-part series. So yeah, I think somebody wrote calling a friend if you have anxiety, or, those are the or suicide, those are the kinds of things I think these wellness wrap and this wellness coaching, as well as the wellness tool of Taking Charge, could help people think through those things. A couple of people are saying they're thinking of using it with their members. It's great to see some of these, this feedback here.
Yeah, thank you. And also, it looks like we only had a few people log off already. We do ask that folks stay in the Zoom room for a moment, because there is a survey that will follow that we would love for everyone to fill out. And on the next slide, we have our email addresses that we can display for you. So if you do have any questions that come up after exiting this meeting, that you can feel free to reach out to us and be in communication with Peggy or myself. And we'd love to hear from you and connect with you and offer whatever information or, engage with you. So thank you, everyone.
Harvey, do you want to mention anything about the coaching? Yeah, I see you're there. He's there. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. We really appreciate the opportunity, and feel free to reach out to us if you have questions, if you're looking for more on the wellness coaching, on the taking charge, or when we do the series, 3-part series, we'll be happy to pass that along to everybody. And also just contact other Crystal and myself. The other thing, if any of you are interested, and we do the Words of Wellness newsletter that it has a lot of wellness thing. Crystal often puts articles in that, and we have a lot of topics around the 8 dimensions. So if you want to get on that mailing list, just reach out to me. It comes once a month, the Words of Wellness.
Well, this was wonderful. Thank you so much, Peggy, and thank you, Crystal. I just want to make a clarification, if you could, Crystal or Peggy, about a survey that people are going to fill out. Is that something you'll put in the chat box?
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. That was my misunderstanding. I thought that there was a session evaluation coming from
okay.
you all after, so I apologize.
Well, that's a great entryway. I could say what's following next is our interlude. And so you can leave that on in the background. It's got great music and great pictures up until the next session. I can let you know that our CEUs are being offered for this particular workshop. And I will be sending everyone who registered here today, everyone who's here today, I'll be sending you an email with how to fill out the evaluation. So I hope you do that. And please do that within 48 hours. And round 4 begins at 2:45, and we've got 3 wonderful workshops, as well as a cultural exhibit that's been going on all day. So the first workshop is National Practice Guidelines for Peer Specialists and Supervisors. Laughter is the Best Medicine with Larry Hockwald, and Transforming Recovery Services. And then 4 o'clock, we're going to have our closing remarks, but it's not going to be the end of the day. Please come back to us at 6, no later than 6:15. And we're actually going to begin our first evening program. We're going to have comedy, we're going to have open mic, we're going to have an honoring circle and a film. So please join us. Thank you all for coming.
Very cool.